Have you ever taken a snapshot of your dog doing something goofy?
Oh, totally. Like a blurry picture of them mid-yawn.
Exactly, yeah. Or maybe you pulled out your phone to grab a quick snapshot of a beautiful sunset before it, vanished.
Right, we do that all the time.
But what if I told you that word originally had absolutely nothing to do with cameras? Like, zero connection to art.
Wait, really? Nothing at all?
Nothing. It actually had everything to do with hunters in the 1800s just firing muskets blindly into the brush.
Oh, wow. That's a wild shift.
Right. And so today, we are taking a deep dive into the hidden battlefield hiding right inside your casual office jargon and daily slang.
It's so interesting to think about.
It really is. You, sitting there listening right now, you're basically carrying around a living museum of human conflict in your vocabulary.
Yeah, a museum of conflict. I like that.
And you use words forged in absolute life or death scenarios just to describe, like a slow Tuesday at the office. And you probably don't even realize you're doing it.
Most people don't. But it really is a fascinating phenomenon to unpack. Because when you look at the etymology of these everyday idioms, you start to realize just how deeply the intensity of military experience has shaped the architecture of modern English.
Yeah, it's like it's baked right in.
It is. We instinctively borrow the gravity of the battlefield to describe the completely mundane frictions of our daily lives.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start by looking at how we describe trying to get out of things.
Oh, the art of absence.
Yes, the very specific art of absence. So, let's say you have a friend who just vanishes from a group chat when it's time to help someone move.
Well, we all have that friend.
Right, or like a coworker who totally ghosts a Friday afternoon Zoom call. You'd probably say they went AWOL, AWOL.
Exactly.
Which, the dictionary defines as being absent, often without notice or permission. I mean, we throw it around constantly.
We do, yeah. But the origin of that term is rooted in an intensely strict, high-stakes environment. I mean, AWOL literally stands for absent without leave.
Absent without leave. Okay.
Yeah. And if we look at the etymology dictionary, they actually trace the first use of that specific expression all the way back to 1767.
Hang on, 1767?
Yeah.
So this predates the American Revolution.
It does, but it didn't really explode into the American lexicon until around 1917.
Ah, okay.
Right around the time the U.S. was mobilizing for the First World War.
That makes sense. But, I always hear it used so casually now.
Oh, for sure.
Like I said, if my buddy bails on a slightly boring dinner party without texting me, I'm saying he went AWOL.
Right, but in reality, he just went home to watch television on his couch.
Exactly. But I have to imagine that in a military context, the reality of going AWOL is, a bit more severe than ghosting a dinner party.
Well, yeah, the stakes couldn't be more different. I mean, in the actual military, going AWOL is a severe offense. And it still carries incredibly serious consequences today.
I would assume so.
You aren't just getting a stern talking to from a manager. Depending on the context and the duration of the absence, an individual can face severe disciplinary action, court-martial, and even actual prison time.
Prison time, literally for not showing up.
Think about why that is, though. In a military context, an unauthorized physical absence compromises the entire unit.
Oh, I see.
It inherently compromises the mission. A chain of command doesn't function based on casual participation.
Right, it's not a suggestion.
Exactly. It relies on absolute, unwavering accountability for every single individual. So to be absent without leave isn't just flaking out. It is a fundamental breach of operational integrity. If the person next to you isn't there when the firing starts, people lose their lives.
Wow, that is a wild juxtaposition. We are taking a concept that carries the threat of federal prison time and applying it to someone who, just didn't want to reply to a Slack message.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch when you put it that way.
But I guess physical absence is only one way to avoid something, right? What happens when you can't just leave, but you still desperately want to be invisible?
Ah, right.
Because that brings up another phrase we use, constantly flying under the radar.
This is a perfect example of military technology entirely rewriting our language. I mean, today we think of radar as just a standard noun.
Right.
But it actually began as a highly classified acronym during World War II. It stands for radio detection and ranging.
Wait, really? Radio detection and ranging?
Yep.
I honestly always assumed radar was just, a slick corporate invention, like the word synergy.
Like a buzzword?
Yeah, something coined by a 1950s marketing team or something. I had absolutely no idea it was an acronym.
Well, most people don't realize that.
Yeah.
It was actually first developed and used in the United Kingdom as a critical technological defense system.
Okay, so during the war.
Yeah, during the early days of WWII,
Yeah.
they needed a way to track incoming German planes that were traveling across the channel to bomb Britain.
Cool.
Radar was literally a way to bounce radio waves off metallic objects in the sky. So it allowed them to see this invisible, deadly threat approaching before it ever reached the coastline.
Okay, so you have this incredibly high-stakes, cutting-edge World War II technology.
Really high stakes.
And its entire purpose is to spot deadly bombers before they can drop their payloads and level cities.
Right.
How does a term born from dodging literal WWII bombers become a metaphor for me trying not to make eye contact with my manager by the water cooler?
It seems disconnected, doesn't it?
It feels like an incredibly massive leap.
Well, what's fascinating here is the specific nuance of the phrase. You see, under the radar doesn't just mean you happen to be low profile by accident.
Okay.
The phrase specifically implies that you are operating intentionally to avoid detection. You are taking active, deliberate measures to hide.
You're trying not to be seen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
During WWII, when a pilot flew under the radar, they were making a conscious choice to drop their altitude drastically.
Oh, I see.
They were hugging the terrain, flying dangerously close to the ground, risking a horrific crash just to stay below the scanning line of the radio waves bouncing off their fuselage.
So they were actively evading the system.
Precisely. They were doing something incredibly dangerous just to remain invisible. And human psychology, well, it loves to borrow those high-stakes metaphors to validate our own internal anxieties.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Your boss is obviously not an enemy combatant tracking you with radio waves.
Hopefully not.
But the anxiety of being scrutinized or the fear of being handed a massive weekend project, it triggers a very real desire for evasion in your brain.
Oh, totally.
Your nervous system feels a threat. So we intuitively borrow the language of a fighter pilot dropping below the tree line to describe keeping our head down in a cubicle.
We borrow the intensity of the battlefield to match how we feel on the inside, even if our outside reality is just a Tuesday staff meeting.
Exactly. Well put.
That makes so much sense. But evasion only works for so long, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
You can't fly under the radar forever. Eventually, you have to face the music, and the stress is just head-on. Which kind of brings us out of the high-tech airspace of WWII and drops us straight down into the mud and the absolute physical grit of World War I.
And this is where the language we've inherited gets incredibly visceral. The contrast between the origin and the modern usage is staggering here.
So true. The phrase we use all the time is being in the trenches.
Yes.
Now, obviously, trenches, as in digging a ditch to hide in, have been used in military conflicts for hundreds of years.
Right. They weren't new.
But trench warfare completely defined World War I in a way the world had just never seen before.
It really did. Trench warfare in WWI was an unprecedented scale of static, grinding, agonizing conflict. I mean, millions of troops were stationed in these opposing trenches.
It's hard to even picture.
It is. They were essentially massive fortified ditches dug directly into the ruined earth of the battlefield. The soldiers lived there, they fought there, and they died there, often in completely horrifying conditions.
Just terrible.
We are talking about waist-deep mud, rampant disease, rat infestations, and the psychological torture of constant, deafening artillery fire.
It is the absolute definition of a nightmare scenario, a prolonged physical hell.
It really was.
Now let's contrast that horrific historical reality with the modern Cambridge Dictionary definition of the phrase in the trenches.
Oh boy.
The dictionary defines it today as working in the most active and difficult parts of a job or business.
It is a profound, almost comical sanitation of the original meaning.
It really is. Just think about the dramatic irony of this. You have someone sitting in a Herman Miller ergonomic chair in a climate-controlled office, sipping an iced matcha latte, complaining to their coworker about how they are really in the trenches today just because they have to answer 80 emails before their lunch break.
Right. It borders on absurd.
Totally absurd. We have completely repurposed this extreme, horrifying physical conflict to describe entirely non-physical white-collar stress. Why do we do that?
Because it points to exactly how the human brain processes difficulty and overwhelm.
Okay, how so?
Well, when you are overwhelmed at work, you literally feel bogged down. You feel like you are taking incoming fire from all directions.
Oh. like everything coming at you at once.
Yeah, the emails are pinging, the Slack messages are popping up, your phone is ringing, you feel trapped in a defensive posture, unable to move forward.
Or stuck.
Exactly. Your adrenal system is firing as if you were under attack. So, while the physical reality of a modern office worker is thousands of miles away from a WWI soldier, the emotional resonance of feeling pinned down, trapped, and engaged in a grueling, drawn-out struggle makes In the Trenches feel deeply appropriate to the person experiencing the stress.
They're just articulating their internal exhaustion.
Exactly.
That defensive posture idea makes perfect sense, because the reality of WWI was that most of the fighting, most of that grueling survival, happened inside those trenches, right?
Yes, mostly static defense.
Shooting from those fortified, sunken positions. But you couldn't stay in the defensive posture forever?
No, eventually orders change.
Which leads us directly to the second WWI phrase on our journey. And this one is about explicitly leaving that safety. The phrase is going over the top.
And this is where the historical context gets incredibly grim.
Yeah.
Today, going over the top means something is, a bit much. But historically, it was an explicit, terrifying command. Soldiers were ordered by their commanding officers to literally climb up the wooden ladders, leave the relative safety of the trenches, and run out into the open battlefield, which was known as no man's land.
Just running directly into opposing machine gun fire.
Exactly. They were fully exposed. It was a tactical action that was extremely risky, and, as historical records emphasize, it routinely led to massive, staggering fatalities.
I can't even imagine.
When a soldier heard the whistle blow to go over the top, they were facing almost certain death. It was the ultimate terrifying extreme of human endurance.
I am having a really hard time squaring that historical reality with how I hear people use that phrase today.
I don't blame you.
I mean, we use it to describe like a sequin jacket or someone's flashy personality or a crazy action sequence in a summer blockbuster movie. We literally walk out of theater and say, oh, the special effects in that movie were totally over the top.
We say it all the time.
How does a phrase born in a moment of near certain death become a casual critique of a Hollywood movie?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the sociology of language, it tells us something profound about how society metabolizes trauma over generations.
Okay, what do you mean?
A phrase that originally signaled a literal life or death charge into enemy fire has simply been sanded down by time. As the generations who actually experience the horror pass away, the words lose their lethality.
They lose the sting.
Exactly. They detach from the blood and the mud. Now, the phrase has been softened to simply mean that an action, an outfit, or a situation is just too much. It exceeds the normal boundaries of expectation. The extreme violence has just been replaced by extreme exaggeration.
Wow. It's wild how time just smooths out the edges of these terrifying realities until they're safe enough to use in casual conversation at a cocktail party.
It really is.
Now, so far, we've talked about phrases that still sound at least a little exhausting or aggressive, like going AWOL, or being in the trenches, or going over the top.
They definitely still carry some weight.
Yeah. But here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to pivot to a word that feels completely harmless. It feels nostalgic, even artistic. It brings up warm memories.
Okay, well, what's the word?
I'm talking about the word snapshot.
Ah, yes. This is perhaps the most brilliant example of etymological misdirection in modern English.
I couldn't agree more. Because when you hear the word snapshot, your brain immediately goes to a camera.
Sure, yeah.
You think of a family vacation, a vintage Polaroid, or just a quick picture you take with your smartphone. But this completely shocked me. Based on the source material, the word snapshot has its roots entirely in shooting terminology. It has zero original connection to art or photography.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
If we consult the etymology dictionary, they trace the origins of snapshot all the way back to 1808.
Wow.
And what's interesting is that originally it was a hyphenated term. Snap, hyphen, shot.
Okay, so 1808. We're talking about the era of muskets and early rifles. What did snapshot actually mean back then?
Well, it was a very specific tactical term used among hunters and marksmen. It was defined as a quick shot with a gun, without aim, at a fast-moving target.
Wait, firing a gun without aiming? That is so specific.
It is.
So if you're out hunting in 1808 and a bird suddenly takes off from the brush in front of you, You don't have time to pull the gun up, close one eye, and carefully line up the sights.
Right, there's no time for that.
You just pull the weapon up and instinctively fire a snapshot. You are prioritizing reaction time over careful precision.
That is exactly the mechanism. It is all about speed and instinct. You are capturing an opportunity before it vanishes.
That's fascinating.
And it wasn't until more than half a century later in 1860 that the term finally crossed over from the hunting fields into the art world. An English polymath and astronomer named Sir John Herschel was the first to apply the word to the emerging field of photography.
But how did that crossover even happen? Because early photography was the exact opposite of a fast reaction.
Oh, totally.
According to the history of the tech, early cameras required subjects to sit perfectly still for several minutes. You couldn't exactly take a quick snapshot of a moving target when it took 10 minutes just to expose the glass plate.
You're exactly right, which is why the term didn't cross over until 1860. The term really only exploded in popularity as camera technology rapidly improved.
Ah, so the tech caught up to the word.
Exactly. Suddenly, engineers were building cameras that could take photos much faster than those earlier cumbersome models. A photographer could suddenly capture a fleeting moment in an instant. The mechanical parallel was undeniable. You were capturing a fast-moving target without a long, drawn-out setup process.
That is such a brilliant analogy, and if you think about it, it perfectly describes what we do with our smartphones today.
It really does.
You're walking down the street, you see something funny, maybe a dog doing a trick, and you just whip the phone out of your pocket and tap the button, sometimes without even looking at the screen.
Yeah, just pure reflex.
You are literally firing your camera without aiming at a fast-moving target to capture a fleeting moment before it disappears forever. It is the exact same mechanical motion and philosophy as the 1808 musket snapshot, just using light sensors instead of lead bullets.
And this evolutionary leap in the word's meaning raises a really important point about how we use the term today, well beyond just literal photographs.
Okay, like how?
Think about how often you hear the word snapshot used as a powerful metaphor in business, data analysis, and corporate strategy.
Oh, all the time. A manager will walk into a meeting and say, give me a snapshot of the Q3 earnings.
Precisely. In the corporate world, a snapshot has come to mean a quick, high-level summary of a complex situation.
Right.
When a CEO asks for a snapshot of a multifaceted project, they're explicitly not asking for the entire, meticulously detailed, highly precise landscape.
They don't want the 10-minute blast plate exposure.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want the long exposure. They are asking for a quick, rapid-fire capture of the moving target at this exact moment in time. The military and hunting origin of speed, reaction, and high-level capture is completely preserved in the modern corporate metaphor. We just swapped the musket for a spreadsheet.
That is incredible. So what does this all mean? We started out this deep dive just trying to figure out why we use these clunky phrases at work, and we've ended up touring the centuries of warfare, technological revolution, and human psychology. It's honestly a lot to take in.
It is, but the overarching takeaway is that language is a living, breathing archive.
A living archive.
Yes. The words you use every single day aren't just empty vessels waiting for your current thoughts. They are deeply loaded with the echoes of history, trauma, and survival.
We really are carrying the history of human conflict, these massive technological leaps and these incredible life or death stakes right there in our mouths every single day.
We really are.
We say we are in the trenches, answering emails. We try to go under the radar during a staff meeting. We take a snapshot of the quarterly budget, and we do it entirely without realizing the ghosts of history that we are summoning with every breath.
It reveals everything about how human beings process extremity. We take the most intense, unimaginable experiences, trench warfare, aerial bombings, primitive survival hunting, and we subconsciously fold them into our daily routines.
It's almost like a coping mechanism.
It is. We use the language of raw survival to navigate the language of the mundane. In a way, it gives our daily struggles a sort of historical weight and validation, even if we aren't conscious of doing it.
It is just wild to think about. And honestly, looking backward at all this history makes me wonder about the future, which leads to a really interesting thought to leave you, our listener, with.
Oh, let's hear it.
If the words we casually use right now for entirely harmless things, like taking a photo of a sunset or just dodging a meeting on a Tuesday, are secretly carrying the ghosts of past wars, well, what modern, cutting-edge military or technological terms being invented right now will our great-grandchildren be using to describe their everyday office drama?
Oh, that's a great question. Will someone in 80 years casually talk about deploying a cyber payload just to mean sending a risky email to their boss?
Right.
Will drone striking become a casual, everyday metaphor for canceling a lunch meeting at the last minute?
Oh, I totally drone struck that calendar invite. I can absolutely hear that happening. And I'm sure they won't even think twice about where the phrase came from. It is a fascinating thing to mull over the next time you're sitting in a meeting, just trying to fly under the radar.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I highly encourage you to listen closely to the words you use today. You might just find a little piece of hidden history in your next conversation. Take care.